Hi, Aaron's. Julia here, waiting on James Brockhurst, recording this on September 8th, 2022, also known as the year 5916, Annus Mundi. So yeah, James and I are just going to have another chat. I think there's already 3 of these, and I really have no clue what we plan to talk about because we didn't plan. Bad choice of words there. But yeah, just going to chat it up a bit. James just had a birthday yesterday, and I think he's 58. So yeah, 58 years of wisdom there. And as y'all know, he's so tapped in and just so clever with his etymology and just a lot of things. Yeah, it's a real honor to know James and for him to come on here and do these talks with me. One of the things I've been thinking about is how important perspective is, and it really is everything. Um, yeah, the way your perspective is, if you see everything as just material and mechanical, and you just have to be the effect from the cause that happens all the time, and that's how it will be. So yeah, keep your perspective where you want it. Focus on what you want, and focus on the fact that you're a divine creator being. Key word there in this regard is creator. You're creating this reality. So make sure that your perspective is where you want it, because that's what guides things besides your subconscious and your unconscious. So yeah, perspective and beliefs. If you believe something, then it's true. And if you don't believe that you can manifest your reality, then you're just going to manifest the default reality. Hi, James. See that? There he is.
Hi, Julia.
Hey, hey, happy birthday again.
Happy birthday.
It was your birthday yesterday, right?
No, no. This is causing a lot of confusion. I think I noticed in the live chat a lot of people were saying happy birthday to Jason.
Right, because he put how old he was in shards too. So that's what you were just doing, saying how old you are in shards.
Yeah, it was just I
You
thought I'll
take
do it.
take your age times 365.25, I guess, right?
Yeah, and then you add the number of days since your
Right.
birthday,
You
and
figure
then
out.
yeah, I mean it's doesn't help where you've got some months are 31 days.
Right. So you have to count all the days that last year. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's strange because I mean both Jason and myself have got the same initials. We're both Geminis. um, so there's probably something in that as well. It's a sign of the messenger communication, isn't it, and travel.
Right. And Jason's name, Jason, is like July, August, September, October, November, and he's a chronologist, so that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I was reading it as more the J being a sort of the letter J being a symbol like a hook. So it's basically it's the only other letter that in its lowercase that has a dot over it. So it's basically a variation on the I, and I think it implies it's tied to Earth. So you could say IA Sun is his name actually means. That's
Right.
sort of
And I have a J too.
sorry.
So then I have a J as well.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that would yeah, I mean they've always got duality meanings, but yeah, so the opposite of the AI, because you're IA. um and A is implies, well, it implies upward. um with the horizontal line, it's a bit like the capstone as well. I
Right.
take the A as being sort of a like where a
And that's a
direction.
symbol for air and earth. But when it's upside down, it's earth, right? And it's air right
Yeah,
side up.
yeah, definitely, yeah. Um, there was something I wanted to sort of, as much as anything else. You said I saw your message. You said you'd watched the very first video I did, and it's like, oh, cringe. I wouldn't even want to see that now. It's like I've probably changed so much, and I know the sound is awful on some of the early videos, but
It was really good, and yeah, it was awesome.
oh, thank you. One of the reasons I started a channel was, oh, yeah, everything's fine, mate. Sorry, I forgot about that. Have a well-being check to make sure I haven't committed suicide or anything. um, yeah, one of the reasons I started the channel was the strange phenomenon of night sweats ringing in the ears. That was in a Facebook group, and I mentioned it, and then there was loads of replies, and I thought, hold on a minute, if so many people are getting this, I thought the whole idea of social media was to converse with people. So I thought that's really what started the channel off. But I had a strange phenomenon yesterday, so this is one I'd like to sort of put across to the listeners. It's not the first time I've had it, and I can't see any pattern to anything I've ingested that would cause it. It's basically been the left eye. It's the right eye is seeing in this reality. The left eye is seeing, it's like a blank to the external world, and it's seeing almost like looking through a kaleidoscope. I don't know if it's seeing this reality in its energy form. Somebody else I spoke to has mentioned having the same thing as well. So I thought, well, maybe this is another thing that other people may be experiencing and wondering what it is.
Kaleidoscope eye, huh? My
Yeah,
nephew, my nephew says he has that. He was a stroke victim, and he doesn't really speak, but he kind of described it that way because when I asked him how he saw out of that one eye, because you can tell he doesn't really see out of it, because if you hand him something on that side, he doesn't always see it, and he said it kind of just looks all scattered. And
yeah. I think. Well, I'm not 100% sure. I think with strokes and heart attacks, it obviously affects the mind and perhaps opens up the mind in a different way, and probably by extension to the five senses used in the external. It seems to be with a lot of people, they can be sort of inoperative down one side from it. But of course, if you go to a doctor or anything like this, they're going to try and rationalize it and give you a sort of materialist answer. This seems to be like the ringing in the ears is not tinnitus. I mean, I've still got that. It varies in pitch anyway. It's difficult to even know if that is a constant or if I just hear the change when it changes frequency, as it were. It's definitely there now. It's almost like Ken Wheeler's radio analogy. We are the frequency modulation. The body is the radio. So then that leaves the broadcast. Is that coming from outside of this reality.
Yeah, very likely. And I was just telling somebody the other day how Tom Campbell relayed this story a long time ago about how this young girl who was just starting college was in a car wreck and she ended up dying in the hospital. But before she died, they did a brain scan or whatever, took a picture of her head to see how her brain was. And they discovered she didn't even have a brain. All she had was a brain stem. But yet she was a valedictorian in her school and off to college and all of this. And if you don't look, you don't know if something's there or not. And a lot of simulation theorists say that things are only rendered once you notice them, and quantum physics says that too. So yeah, all these mechanical explanations that they try to give us in this realm, they're all BS. They're all BS.
Definitely. It's no different from talking to sort of Joe Public out there. There's no point of reference. So they will, it's like everything, that people will try and rationalize and find a rational explanation for things that are clearly not coming from the material realm. There's way too many testimonies and accounts of things over the years, psychic phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, that clearly shows that there is something more. And of course, now we've got a working self-proving chronology, thanks to Jason, that sort of, it basically, you can sort of put all that side away, as it were, of arguing over what came first, as it were, and this missing 1,000 years thing. I can understand, because I sort of went along that, seeing old headstones and things, and why are they using a J instead of a 1? But I think maybe it may be something to do with trying to confuse things. It seems more and more now that whole idea of the missing 1,000 years seems to come from controlled opposition, just to muddy the waters further. Because that's a constant theme about divide and conquer anyway. It's a well-known symbol with certain sort of secret groups, shall we say?
Right, not so secret group, because if they're really secret, we don't know about them.
This is it. It's another one thing I will say is I was in court yesterday and I got case dismissed as the outcome after about 4 or 5 visits backwards and forwards. And the previous time I sat in the dock, it was unusual that there was no front. It was just the sides and the back, and it was open at the front. So I put into practice something we've always done. You sort of learn by observation. So I basically sat there, do we say, like Donald Trump would sit, the same sort of hand movement. Whether that had any sort of communication with the judge that he sort of noticed, I don't know, but it seems to work, do we say. And it's worth observing as well the other hand gestures and things that are always on social media that are being pointed to. And it's like, well, two can play at this, because this reality, it seems to be the seeking ye shall find. The more you look for something, this reality will respond and give you. And it seems to be, well, you've got something that is neutral, and you can feel fear from it, you can feel something positive from it, and you can get it to work with you, not for you, but it will work with you and sort of certainly bring you what you want. And it comes down again to this heart space, really. What energy you're putting out will therefore attract the same energy, the same frequency back.
Right. And that was such a smart move doing that in court. That's so funny. That's cool.
I never planned anything. It's like I'm just going to go with the flow, what feels right on the day each time. But interestingly, the court date was the 7th of September, which in this Gregorian calendar will be expressed as 7/9 or 9/7. It's interesting how each side of the Atlantic, it seems to be deliberately done that in the UK we put the date and then the month, and then the USA will do the opposite and put month first and then the day. So 2/1, depending on which side of the Atlantic you are, could be seen as the 2nd of January or the 2nd of January or February the 1st. So if I was doing anything with dates, I would tend more to write the first 3 letters of the month, so it's absolutely clear which way round it is, because 9/11 is a classic case, because it reads to UK eyes as being the 9th of November.
Right. And that's coming up too.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of talk about the 6th of November with things possibly. I mean, there was something in the live chat on Jason's question and answers. Someone saying that Captain Dementia has stood down, but I've not seen anything since. But we've had this come out with these predictions and from the isometric markers. I mean, the UK has just gone through this. We've gone from Margaret Thatcher, which is MT. We've had Theresa May, which is TM. Now this latest Prime Minister, apparently her name is Maria Elizabeth Truss. So she's still MT. So we've got this MT, TM, MT. So MT, I'm wondering if it's saying empty. Is that what they're presenting to us?
Yeah, good decoding on that one. Yeah, it's so interesting. All those kind of things just make you see how much of a stage it is. And
Yeah,
then look
well,
at Biden, and look at Biden getting up there and making, you were just talking about body language and sending signals with your body, and really body language is more what it's about than verbal. Verbal is
yes,
only about 4% of communication or something like that when you're physically seeing someone. So yeah, and then Biden getting up there and making those moves like a dictator, even though Hitler wasn't necessarily the person that history's portrayed him to be, but the
yeah,
person that they do portray him to be, that's who Biden's up there mimicking now. It's just so staged, so staged.
definitely. The world really is a stage. Um, and of course it's like a theater of fear if it's believable to you. Interesting. And yeah, Joe Biden, so he's a JB as well, isn't he? There's more. I've not quite got the missing bit of the puzzle to all this, because I left a comment. I watched sorry about the noises. The neighbour's washing machine on spin. I hope it's not going to come through. The joys of a more modern building. Oh
Can't hear
dear.
anything. I can only hear you. Can't hear can't hear the background.
Oh, good. It's like the whole place is shaking. It won't be long anyway. So I'm glad it's not coming through. Yeah. So I watched. I thought I'm going to watch it again. Jason did the encoding in the Great Pyramid, and clearly that shows it's like a blueprint of time and space, but there's something more to it. You've got those 4 star shafts, which are closed. They were closed off to the outside. I think it was the last can't even remember the figures. 'Cause I'm trying to remember sort of 25, 30 years ago when I read about these sort of about the Great Pyramid or about Egypt. And those star shafts have been opened up to use as air vents with tourists and the problems with condensation and things, and with having masses of people going in and out. But to me, it's also saying the eyes and the ears, and almost showing meditation, because it's closed off to the outside world. So I feel the Great Pyramid encapsulates far more. You've also got the 138 expressed as you've got one pyramid, 3 chambers, and 8 sides. So you've got a 138 referenced in that as well. But I feel it's saying that construction is also encoding something about human physiology, the mind. You could see the pyramid as the 2 physical eyes and the spiritual eye. It's the same triangular shape as well.
Yeah, those are good decodes too. There's just so much there.
Yeah, I feel there's still something I haven't quite got. I'm not gonna. I find with these things, if you try and force it, if you try and think it, it's not going to come. But if you just say, okay, when the universe is ready, I'm open to receive the information, and you get those aha moments. It's almost like we're led by an invisible force to sort of, it may be going on Facebook or even YouTube, a recommended for you thing. It's like how uncanny that can be sometimes. It's like you look at these recommended for you, and it's like, that's just what I was thinking about the other day, what this particular video is showing. And it's incredible the way that side of things seems to work as well, this sort of invisible sort of guiding force, as I call it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's just insane sometimes. I was looking at this tree I walk by all the time. At some, I can't even remember the name now. And I come back and I look at my phone. And it's like, should you prune this tree or not? You know, and it's like, how does the phone know about that tree that's in my garden? This is so insane. You know? It's like, wow.
The other interesting thing I've noticed is watch the particularly on Messenger, the sort of almost predicted, suggested words. It's like we are teaching this AI collectively without even sort of knowing it. It's learning from us. But I feel Jason's right that the AIX thing can't, it needs data. It can't formulate like the simulacrum can, as it were. That seems to be the distinction between the two. I'd say the AIX is a copy of the simulacrum, or it's based on the simulacrum, and it seems to have a more sinister or negative intent behind it. It seems very mechanical, very methodical, whereas the simulacrum, it sort of just is, as it were, and works in ways that are totally unpredictable, if that makes sense.
Right. AIX is more predictable, and that's probably true that it does feed on data. You know, it has to have that input because it wasn't designed as an initial program. You know, somehow it's just a glitch in the program, or I don't know. It just has to have that data fed to it, where the simulacrum doesn't have to have that. The simulacrum is already programmed. You know, it's got everything it needs.
Yeah. Well, it's funny enough, I was thinking about this about half an hour ago. It seems to be a series of feedback loops. So if I look at the external world, I agree with Jason that the sky is a lie. I see it as I see it as the big screen. So everything that we see it up in the sky, night sky or day sky, is something being beamed up, probably from Mount Meru, the North Pole, and it's projected up in the same way that you put in a young child's room, you put that mobile, and it does like the stars do like a circle, cartoon stars and the moon thing on the ceiling. It seems also to work with energy. It's a feedback loop. If you're coming from the heart space and you're putting out the right energy, it again seems to work like a loop. You attract the same people on the same frequency, the same energies. If you're on the fearful side, you're going to get that frequency. But again, it's all feedback loops. On the egoic level, the praise and the accolades, particularly like with Hollywood and things, well, that's a feedback. The feedback from the audience, the feedback from fellow actors and actresses, and you've got a Golden Globe for, or you've been nominated for a Golden Globe for this or whatever. And it seems to be a pattern with this reality that it's a series of feedbacks. And the AI side, it's a feedback of data collection. I mean, I'm very suspicious of all these name tests. What spirit animal were you in a past life? It's like that's another data collection that's appealing to the ego. People wanting to find out if they were Zeus or whatever.
Right, and Tom Campbell says that too. He says that you can, intend that you were somebody in a past life, and you can actually be that. You can get that reality stream that you were that person.
Well, that's funny you should say that. Yesterday went like a dream. It was all over in under an hour, and it's like, great, we can still get to this sort of Wednesday sort of food bank thing. So you get a cup of coffee and a cheese roll, and they were giving out. There was a charity to do with recovery from all sorts of addictions. And of course, there's a little subtle thing. So I got this card come through, and it's got John 8:12. It says, "I am the light of the world" on it. What's the rest of it say? Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And I thought, well, even in that, it's like, yes, I do identify with the character that's allegedly said that, because it's esoteric. I am the light of this world when I see this physical avatar as the world that I reside in. As a spiritual eternal being, I'm housed in this physical avatar. So I am the light of this world, and anybody else can say that about themselves as well. And you can't say I am without referring to yourself. So again, that's to me is a sort of confirmation from this simulacrum, as it were. And I think that's beautiful. I acknowledge this, my lower eye ego side loves it, but that's held in check. It doesn't have the same potency as, say, when I first started the channel, and it's like, oh, I've had 18 views and I've got 10 subscribers, wow. And now it's like, well, the numbers don't matter because they're probably manipulated anyway. The irony of all of this is, if you want to know the true numbers of subscribers that are on this spiritual path, the only people that are probably going to know are at YouTube. Because with I should imagine most people will subscribe to more than one channel. So you're never going to be able to, you can't just count up number of subscribers on any channel and come up with a number, because you're going to have overlaps all the time. So it's sort of ironic, but numbers don't really matter from that point of view. It's the content of the messages we're putting out. That's the key part, I feel.
Right, and whoever needs to hear it will hear it, because just like you had that message yesterday, you get these messages when you need them, and you come across it. If you're on that path, you'll come across it if it's something that's going to resonate with you and help you on your path.
Definitely. It is all really about self-belief, self-confidence. I happened to hear something on the radio a little while ago. On Radio through the 3, they play a piece of music, and then it's open to listener suggestions of linking that piece of music to something else. So I forget the actual piece of music, but it featured the harp. So somebody wrote in and said about Harpo Marx from the Marx Brothers. He's the one that always appears as mute with a sort of blonde, he's got a blonde wig, and he plays the harp. Apparently, he learnt to play, he was self-taught on playing the harp. He imitated depictions of angels holding harps and tuned one string and then built it up from there. And I thought, even that has got a wonderful message, because this goes back to being this thinking like a child, this bring the children unto me. As a child, you learn by observing parents and uncles and aunts, grandparents, and you imitate. It's like, well, they can walk, I want to learn to walk, and you imitate what they do. But also in that message, it's like the sheer determination. With this Harpo Marx being able to teach himself how to play the harp. Whether the story is actually true, I don't know. I'm just taking what I hear from it. I assume that it is true, but obviously with history, we don't know. And there's also the question of the surname Marx as well, and Karl Marx comes into this. But I still feel it has a valid message in it, and it is about being open, and it's like, well, how beautiful. Even what people would perceive as part of the system, you can still hear things coming through if you're on the right frequency, as it were. So you're tuning into the frequency of that radio broadcast, and now you're hearing a more subtle message from something unseen that's contained within that. And this can be right down to seeing vehicles going past the window with the company names. And there seems to be like the simulacrum is giving us constant messages if we're open to see these things. And then it's employing sort of what I call sort of vertical thinking or lateral thinking to this. And it's like, well, it's presenting that, but that's got a second meaning to it for me to find. And it's just amazing the way this all comes through.
Yeah, it really is. And if you pay attention, you're just constantly awed by all the synchronicities and messages you get. And, you get, it was a couple of months ago, I guess, I don't know. But I was thinking on one of my phones, I was thinking, man, and I don't know if I said it out loud or if I just thought it because I talk to my dogs a lot. But I was like, it would really suck if I forgot this PIN number now that I'm shutting this phone down because I was restarting the phone. And I've known that PIN number forever, and I remember numbers really well. Forgot it. Forgot it. Could not remember it. Had to get my friend to contact the place in Spain because they didn't speak English to get the new number again or whatever to open it back up. But just because I thought that or said that, and that's such a silly thing. I never ever forget numbers. I still remember numbers from when I was a kid. So it's just such a weird thing. And or I'll think of something I need, some product at the grocery store or whatever, and the grocery store typically doesn't have it. Then the next time I go, they'll have that product. It's so crazy.
This is the incredible part about it. It just, to me, it just shows there is this interaction. The word God, I mean, you could take as an ever-loving God. It could just be referencing this simulacrum. So if whatever your energy you're putting out, it's going to work like the subconscious. It will respond. It won't necessarily hear the material part of it, like that analogy of I want a sports car, it will hear I want, and it doesn't know what a sports car is unless you put more feeling and communicate the message about how would it feel to sit in that car, what would the seat feel like, what would the newness of the car smell like. But if you're just communicating I want, then the simulacrum will think, okay, or it seems to work on I want, so okay, you want, so it's going to give you more of that want feeling rather than the actual end result that you're seeking, because it's the way we communicate.
Good point. So it gives you more longing that way. So it just keeps you always feeling in lack if you're not real clear on your intentions.
Yeah, it's almost as if it has no distinction between what we would perceive as good or bad. So it just hears I want, and it's like, okay, here's some more want. Here's some more feeling of want, because it's communication and feeling, definitely. I would say that what actually happens, if I'm going to try and explain it in a sort of science or materialist view, is if you see the pupils of the eyes as like a crosscut of a multi-strand cable, so you've got loads and loads of wire ends that are live, because we're alive in this realm, as it were. The chemical changes from the thoughts in the body seems to maybe come out as an electromagnetic projection into the external. So that now responds from that communication with the eyes, as it were. Probably the ears will come into this in some way. I've not actually thought about that at this stage, but certainly with the eyes. And there's all those sayings like people see what they want to see. So I feel that's only half the message. You'll see what you want to see depending on how you feel. Because it's got to come from inside. It's got to come from the heart, really. And obviously with the feelings we have, which causes the chemical that changes to the avatars with the amount of serotonin, adrenaline, or I don't even know the names of the other parts, but whatever's being pushed around the body or moving in the blood are these chemical changes, which then seems to have a direct interaction with the external. Hopefully that sort of brings
Yeah, the emotions are key for sure.
Yeah. One of the greatest expressions that's guiding humanity is art, and of course art is in everything. And well, I think a most noticeable example of this is when you've got, say, even karaoke. You could have someone who's not a particularly good singer, but that song means something to them. So they're really putting heart and soul into what they're trying to communicate. And the audience collectively will pick up on that. And you can have a professional singer go up there who's just doing it as a job, going through the motions, saying, oh, I'm going to get £20 at the end of the night singing this. All right, I'll just sing it. The audience will can tell the difference. It's like it's going to come across as flat and there's no emotion in it. This is a big thing with particularly with classical music. They talk about a soloist either being sort of mechanical or they've really put feeling into the piece of music they're conveying, because it's all art. And same with paintings and things. You can feel things that the artist is trying to convey, and the artist is obviously operating in feeling as well. They've got this inspiration, this idea, and now they're communicating it by, they are a medium of something beyond them that is then translating it into a physical form as either a painting or a piece of music. And then people will respond. An art is subjective anyway. There's no right or wrong with it. What one person may like, another person won't. I find it amazing how you could have two people standing right next to each other at a concert, listening at the same time, and one person will feel something and the other person will feel different about it. Obviously, we then also, as we go through life, we can add attachments. So, oh, I don't like that piece of music because that reminds me of when Auntie whatever died, or whatever it happens to be. Or, oh, I really like that piece of music. It reminds me of when we went on holiday to somewhere. And so it's also this whole attachment thing comes into this as well, and or not attaching. And a lot of conductors I've listened to will say that when they approach a piece of music, even if they've been conducting Beethoven symphonies all their life, they will then come back to it as if they've never seen it before, like it's the first time. So they're not putting an attachment to it. So again, I feel that's been communicated to us, and it's like, was it any accident I was supposed to go down that course of looking at classical music in particular, and what I get out of that, and the message I'm getting coming back, because I've trawled the YouTube looking at anything to do with Bruckner, getting musicians' perspectives, the brass players and things, and the conductors, what their personal take on it, and what it's like to play the pieces of music, and it all builds up this beautiful picture. Sorry.
Right. And it's all about the resonance and the passion that the artist has, because even if you don't necessarily, you know, think the art's the best or whatever, you can always see and hear there's a lot of passion, and a lot of feeling coming from the artist.
Definitely. Chat shows and things as well. That's another good one for that. The observation of it. It's like, look how animated somebody gets and how excited and how explosively it's like you've picked the subject, say, a Ravel piano concerto or something. And it'd be, oh yeah, I love playing that piece of music. And then they'd start talking about it. And it's the way they're saying it as well. It's like, oh, and it sort of grabs your attention. It's like, well, I may not know that piece of music. I may not even like that piece of music, but I'm appreciating what that artist is saying about it and how they feel about it, and what they've taken from it as well. Because that can sometimes open up something. I find that particularly with music, it takes me 3 times to get used to it, as it were. The first time it's like, I'm not sure about this because it's unfamiliar to me. The second time, oh, I like that particular piece in the middle of the music. And then I'll sort of begin to either think, yeah, I want to hear this more and explore it further, or this is not doing anything for me. Again, it's all subjective. There's no right or wrong with this. But yeah, there's definitely this whole level of the biological chemical changes to the avatars that is very much a part of this. And obviously the avatars are what are our vehicle to operate in this material realm. So they play
Right. And you have epigenetics too, and how Bruce Lipton talks about the honeymoon effect. And when you get into that, when you're in that state, that honeymoon effect, when you're in love and you just have all that passion and all that energy and all that excitement, everything flows good for you. You don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep, everything's great, life is perfect. And the thing is, we can keep that consistent pretty much, if we just, find that passion in us. It's there, it's always there. We just have to see it. The everyday things need to bring it out, because it's amazing. There's just miracles happening all around us all the time.
Yes, again, I can use a sort of musical analogy here. Particularly in the 19th century, I mean, it was in the days where you didn't have recorded music in any form. The the thing that you would have had most of, probably a lot more numerous, would have been the piano, an upright piano. So you get these transcriptions of, say, symphonies or arias and things from operas that are like the popular songs of the day. So we can take that honeymoon feeling and transpose it or transcribe it into a slightly modified instrument, as it were, which is our physical being, and we can still communicate that message. Certainly with a composer like Franz Liszt, he was almost like a jukebox, shall we say, of the 19th century, very benevolent, promoting other composers' works, making transcriptions of arias and things. And it doesn't lose any of the essence of the music to me. Obviously, you've not got a full orchestra and singers, you've just got a piano, but it's 88 keys. We're sort of, I could go off on a tangent on numerology here with like 88 constellation, 88 keys and things, but you're trying to keep on topic with it. It's conveying feeling with art, and even with what we're doing, there is an artistry to creating a channel, creating videos, conveying a message we feel is important. So we're doing exactly the same blueprint. There may be a lot of people out there who think you can't call a YouTube creator an artist in the same way as a Da Vinci painting or something, but the blueprint is the same. And again, art is subjective. It's not I'm not sort of claiming to rank what I do alongside, and that's down to the audience anyway. These things take on a life of their own. I sort of discussed this in I wrote that book in 6 days. It was like channeled, called Nothing and Half, Genesis for the Aquarian Age, and that just flowed. I was just really the channel and the avatar to communicate it, but I liken it in that.
So you wrote a book?
Yeah, it's on the playlist. I've yet to. I've only got one physical copy of the book, the original. I'm got a laptop at the moment, but the plan is to make a PDF, and it will be just free to anybody who wants it. But
so what's it called on your playlist?
Called Nothing and Half. Nothing is in brackets because it's from nothing comes everything. I think there's about 9 parts. There's a practical exercise in it as well. It's like by the end of this, you'll be writing your own symphony without even knowing how to write music.
Awesome.
What I looked at, where this all came from, this is one of this strange way this comes. It's if you just go on a Google search and you look at an orchestral plan, and it'll divide the orchestra up into the string section, the woodwinds, the brass, and the timpani, and they're color coded. It's like a semicircle, and then there's a circle, and they're not putting somebody on a pedestal. You're putting somebody on the podium. Now that's the conductor. Now whether that conductor is also the composer of a piece of music, it doesn't matter. It's a channel of communication. Now, when the conductor comes on stage, he may look at the audience, but the rest of the time he has his back to the audience. The semicircle of the orchestra is only half the circle. The other half of the circle, the unknown, the audience, you can't actually physically draw because it's unknown potential. Now that conductor is conveying something through these musicians, through the instruments, to this audience, and then they will they become the receivers, and then obviously they're giving a sort of unseen communication in their appreciation with the applause at the general feeling with a live concert you get anyway. So I sort of likened it. So you've got this basically an eye, and the conductor is in the middle, but who he's communicating to, he doesn't see. And we can adopt that from the heart space, we become the conductor, and how we conduct ourselves, that's your orchestra. So I've likened the string section, which is color coded blue, as being emotion. The strings represent the emotions. The woodwind represents the spirit because it's wind. The brass represents the earthy element, and then the timpani is the exterior world. All the instruments in the timpani section are things that are struck or hit, like drums and cymbals, the things that make the impact at the dramatic moments. So they're the things we're taking in through the eyes, the things that have an impact on us immediately. So that could be the news or whatever it is. And then you go through this interplay between the different parts of your physical orchestra, your body. And then you are the conductor that is now keeping that orchestra together and keeping it all flowing right. You're the only one that sees the entire orchestra. You're the part of the orchestra that doesn't make a sound of your own as well, interestingly. The conductor can't do anything without those orchestral players. So that's our physical body. So it's sort of basically, I of myself can do nothing. You will go on to do greater than I, is being expressed in art. Just my interpretation anyway.
Yeah, that's a really cool way to look at it. And you can also look at the orchestra as all your judgments that you have about yourself too, and make sure that you think positive about yourself and you're not sabotaging yourself.
Yeah, I think I don't see it normally, but I think on the channel, the banner, I've used that semicircle with the colors. It sort of almost looks like a rainbow, but not. And interestingly as well, the numerology comes into this. If we count first and second violins as one group, so that's violins, then you've got violas, cellos, and double basses. You've got 4 there. The woodwinds, you've got clarinets, oboes, flutes, and bassoon. So you've got another 4 there. Then when you go to the brass, you've got another 4. You've got trumpets, horns, trombones, and tubas. So you've got another 4 there. So there's 12, and then timpani makes 13. And I can see the numerology coming out of this as well. So you've got all these constituent parts, but you come together as one, as an orchestra, and it's all held together by the conductor, hopefully, if they know what they're doing. They're also keeping time as well. And also, if it's a composer that is not, if it's a conductor that is not the composer, he or she is giving their interpretation of their personal take on that piece of music. So again, that's going to have a variable effect, because they certainly vary conductor to conductor. Some pieces of music can be half an hour different, depending on what tempo they take and how they interpret the music. So I find that all very interesting as well, to sort of bring into this whole idea of the art spirit. There's another playlist as well called the Art Spirit. Actually, there's 2. There's one I've used the title for a collection of videos, but there's also the Art Spirit, which is the book by Robert Henright. There's an interesting connection there. I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you I think it's about 19 videos. They sort of vary from 15 to 30, 40 minutes. So it's nice sort of in chapters. But if you hear it as not just talking about an artist with canvas, and you hear it in an esoteric message, it is fantastic what he's saying. And the interesting connection is the conductor, the composer that, and the music that I feel more and get more out of is Anton Bruckner. Now, he was influenced in harmonies by Richard Wagner. And it turns out that Robert Henry was inspired when he's painting. His wife was playing themes, transcriptions of Wagner music dramas on the piano while he was painting. There's like this Wagner, an art connection that's coming across. I thought, well, that's really amazing as well. We've got a common denominator here. And Wagner, take the ring cycle, for example. The basic premise of that is you've got this gold in the Rhine. It's a symbol of nature. It's a symbol of beauty. The Rhine maidens say to this dwarf, whoever can renounce love can have ultimate power, material wealth. And of course, this Alberic does. But nature takes back that gold. It's through redemption. It's through love. And it goes back as a symbol of nature again. And that story, and I think this is one of the reasons this 4-night epic, a fusion of German mythology. So you've got giants, you've got the underworld, you've got gods and Valhalla. It still conveys this language, lessons of the heart. You've got the power and corruption of the gods in the sky. You've got Wotan's alter ego, which is Alberic from the underworld, enslaving the other dwarfs to extract gold, and the drama sort of unfolds, lots of plots and murders and things. But that basic message is in that again, and it's like, wow. And I feel that's why it's been so successful for, what's it, 1876. So what, 150 years for argument's sake, roughly. Are we still live? Sorry.
Yep, I'm still here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think it is a case of the more you look, seeking you shall find, the simulacrum will respond. And there was times where I could listen to these things and I wouldn't hear it in these ways. I wouldn't be able to interpret things I do now. And it's like this is just feeding me what I'm seeking. Which I think that's really beautiful, the way this whole reality works. And from this perspective, it's definitely changed the way I feel about this reality. The external world hasn't changed one bit, but how I feel about it definitely has, radically different and so much better. I'm now coming from
perspective. It's all about perspective.
Definitely. So again, it's like being the conductor. You're turning your senses inwards to your body, in that case, your orchestral body. Now you're communicating something to the outside world in expression of feeling and in sound, not the direct communication of the conductor turning around and talking to the audience. It wouldn't have the same effect. And certainly with music, you can't use words to describe music. You can from the mechanics of it. You can say, well, it starts with a guitar solo and then the drums and the bass come in, but it doesn't give you any idea of what that music even sounds like. Of all the arts, I put music as probably the highest because it is the odd one out. With a painting or a sculpture, you've got a physical form, but with music, it's in the mind. it may come from something physical that's then inspired. Some say like Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony is inspired by nature, but the communication of it is really in feeling with no physical form. And then there's another step to this, that piece of music may be popular for a while, and then it goes back to just being a music score gathering dust in some archive. It needs the orchestra and the conductor to then put life into that score. It won't. The score can't do anything on its own. And whether things remain popular or whether they constantly, or whether they're in the limelight and lose popularity. I mean, there's so many external reasons for that, some good, some bad. But I find this whole thing absolutely amazing.
Yeah, there's just so much magic, and we have so much creative power, and so many people don't see it, or they just deny it, and they want to hold on so much to this mechanical perspective and just feel like they're the effect to the cause instead of the other way around. And it's kind of sad to see that, because we all have that potential to just be these magical creators.
Yeah, there's a certain amusing irony in it as well. Of all the composers, that communicates greatest to me is what is described as God's composer with Anton Bruckner. He was a devout Roman Catholic, so it's hardly conducive to my sort of perspective in that point of view. But I can move past that, and that even in that, I mean, you've got a thing called Asperger's. Well, that actually comes from a Roman Catholic sort of ritual, as it were. Asperger's means purify. And it's used as a medical label in a very negative way, but the word has another meaning. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. But Bruckner wouldn't have been your typical Roman Catholic. From the accounts, he would have been more like one of these hallelujah thigh slapping sort of that sort of fraction, that sort of really over the top in the way they sort of immerse themselves in that sort of way of praying, as it were.
Right, the fundamentalist.
Yeah, it's almost like he's lost in the moment, and I feel that comes across greatest in his Seventh Symphony. He had a premonition of the death of Wagner in 1883. Wagner died of a heart attack in Venice, but Bruckner had this premonition, and what is called the coda at the end of the second movement, he brings in these Wagner tubas. Wagner had gone to Adolf Sachs and said, look, I need something, an orchestral color between, I forget which brass instruments, they're like a missing tone, as it were, that adds a sort of depth and a warmth to the music. And Bruckner was the first to employ these in the symphony. And he tacks this bit on the end. And in this long sort of build up to this coda, you can almost hear to me, I can hear this sort of, he's lost in that moment of grief, of expression, of celebration of his life. And then you get this cymbal clash. It's like he's just had this letter or this telegram arrive, say, terrible news, Wagner has now died. The third movement of that Seventh Symphony, the theme is like da 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 da. It sounds to me like a cockerel. It's announcing a new day. You've lost your mentor. You're now going out in the world on your own. You've got to do this for yourself. You've had your guru, as it were, that's guided you to a certain point, but now it's up to you to carry this forward. And to me, Bruckner is a perfect example of. It wasn't till about the age of 60 he started to get any recognition. but his determination, and I feel this message he's conveying in the symphonies of this journey from before birth to beyond death. That's what I hear in the symphonies. They're more consistent than Beethoven. It was something like 20 days between when he finished writing the Sixth Symphony and then started the Seventh. And this is a pattern with Bruckner. It's like as soon as he finishes one symphony, he writes the next one, and then he revises them, and then does another revision, listening to friends, because the music was too advanced for its time. It was very misunderstood. He's been described as the sort of godfather of heavy metal, all things, and rock music. It's almost the basis of a lot of film music. It sounds very Wagnerian, very Brucknerian in places. Certainly, John Williams has emulated this whole theme, particularly the use of the brass and the emotions that are conveyed. And I think his name's John Barry. He wrote a lot of the James Bond music. There's a CD, it was 13 tracks. One of them is called The Day the Earth Fell Silent, and The Beyondness of Things. They're fantastic pieces of music that seem to convey emotions of things very much to do with resets and as much as anything else. Oh, incidentally, I applied the blueprint of isometric markers to Anton Bruckner's life. So he's born 1824, died 1896. So the midway point of those 72 years is about 36 years. So when I look at the year 1859 and also 1858 and 1860, he composes absolutely no music. And then after 1860, it's like he's got the sort of chant song that goes right back to Palestrina. So it's like the 1500s. He's now got a model with Beethoven of a symphony, but now he's got the harmonies of Wagner, the orchestral colors that are added in. And you've got this sudden sort of rebirth after 1860 with Bruckner. And this is like, I can see that same isometric marker that Jason talks about applied to Bruckner's life. And then even to my own life, it seems to go in 15-year chunks of, I can see markers all the way through and isometric projections either side of it. And I feel that blueprint, which again is basically tied in with the Great Pyramid of Giza, it's a blueprint we can adopt and apply to our lives. And it's like, well, what happened 10 years ago in my life? So if I can find the marker, I can then sort of predict with some accuracy of what my life is going to be like 10 years from now, as it were. And I just love the way this all sort of ties in together.
Yeah, fortune telling. I've always kind of been like, I just want to be surprised. I never really look into that kind of stuff about what my future might be. I'm
No,
just
I
like,
don't.
just whatever happens, I'll just be there because, you know, but I do try to
Yeah.
manifest things at different times. So, you know, I kind of have anticipation and hopes on some fronts, but yeah, I never really try to do all that prediction stuff.
Well, it seems also you've got two what almost seem like diametrically opposites, as it were. On the one hand, it's like with manifestation, you've got to communicate in feeling. So you've got to put a lot of detail in it. So going back to the car one, it's no good even saying I have a new car. You've got to go far deeper into that and ask yourself the question: how would it feel? What would it smell like? How would I feel that I've got this new car? And really putting the detail into it, right? The color, the cut, as specific as you want, providing you put that feeling right into it. But at the same time, I feel a lot of it is it's like I'm just going to be open to receive. I'm going to spread my sort of openness to this universe, to the simulacrum, and just let it come. Now, I feel maybe it's material things where we have to be specific, but the non-material, the more eternal, the more spiritual, maybe that's like be open and don't be specific. I'm just
Yeah, I
speculating.
think that's key right there. I think you found it.
Thank you. It's not something, this is sort of like off the top of my head, as it were, because it's not something I'm sort of, you're getting sort of the live thought processes with this one. A lot of the videos are actually like that. The basic things might be there, but it's, as I'm sort of creating a new video, the finer points, it's like thought association, that basic thing I want to say will then leads into that. I mean, it's so easy to go off on tangents because everything is interconnected anyway. It's all a series of loops. I mean, look at that flower, the flower of life pattern. It's overlapping petals. Where is the circle? There's loads and loads of circles, and the petal of one makes up the petal of another. So when it comes down to topics and things, whether we're talking about simulacrum, the esoteric, the exoteric, there's no point where there is no division really, except maybe in whether it stays in the unseen or becomes manifest and becomes solid.
Right? Like Ken Wheeler always says, metaphysics and physics are the same.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I wouldn't say Ken Wheeler is at all spiritual, but he has this.
He
Oh,
does know that he's not the avatar.
he's still a medium of expression of something that's beyond him. Whether it's his higher self, I don't know, but to me, he's putting things across in such a simple way that is far easier to grasp. Like talking about the magnet, to me, he is like the authority on the magnet, really. Purely because he can way that it's like, why can't we have to explain things this way? But
yeah, like you said, it's all intertwined and all connected. The whole syncretism thing goes with just everything. And then I guess once you get in that web, you know, in the flow of it, just moving through it, that's when your life gets that flow.
Yeah. We almost sort of resemble that line between the white and the black on the yin yang. It's not a straight line. It's the weaving. It's moving like a spirit. It's an S shape anyway, and it's within an O, which is which is the organic, which is the avatar.
The S curve, which you know goes through the torus.
Yeah, definitely. We are individualized centers. Well, basically, we sort of replicate stars in the sky. If you think about it, we're in little clusters on frequencies, how we feel, how we think. Walking the spiritual path, we all seem to be in a particular star cluster, as it were. Star seeds is another expression that's often used. So I suppose you could say we're a mirror of all the constellations. There's supposed to be millions and millions of stars, or there's supposed to be millions and millions of people.
Right. And so you don't get all the flat earthers upset out there. At this point, that would be simulated stars, but you know, outside of here, who knows? Maybe there are planets floating in space.
Well, it's funny. I found myself quite a few years ago in a sort of discussion, and I thought, I haven't actually subscribed to this flat Earth thing, this whole idea at the time, but I'm actually arguing their case, and it's like, well, where's all these flat earthers where they all disappeared to? It's like I'm actually defending what they're saying about the observations, because I can see that it works. But now, sort of seeing it as a simulacrum, that the foundations of that just fall away, to be honest. Apart from think of it as like the earthing plane. But in a physical sense, from the highest mountain to the deepest ravine in an ocean, it isn't flat. But I also think about, well, look at the physical body and the shape of cells and things that we're showing. They're always like circular anyway. There's a lot of arguments, and mathematics works for hollow Earth, where we're sort of like on the inside of a ball. So that can be argued, because you've got the concave Earth has seems to have stemmed off a flat Earth, and it's like, oh, now we've reversed everything, so we're not on the outside of something, we're on the inside of something. But the mathematics will work for any of these things, and it becomes a divisionary thing. And if everything comes from source, you've also got the artificial intelligence interpretation of an internet source, because it's like the timing that these things seem to come out. You've got flat Earth, and you've got mud floods, you've got Tartaria, you've got missing 1,000 years, and so on and so on. And it's like a lot of this stuff is being found on the internet. Well, who's uploading it to the internet? What's the source of it? Because it's all leading us down different rabbit holes and things.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You get so distracted in following all this,
Well,
the new narratives that everybody's trying to create, because they know the one we're being fed is false. So there's lots of different ways you can go from that false narrative, but none of that really matters. It just matters that you know the one they're feeding you is BS. And then if you want to, the best person to follow is somebody that's read thousands of books as far as history goes. And then, you put it in the context of a simulation, then you don't need to keep going down any of these rabbit holes. Especially Jason's work with these cyclical events, these catastrophic events. They explain all this stuff, and having these weapons that can be used from the sky to, just melt buildings literally and kill off life and flash freeze things so things can be fossilized that shouldn't be, and etc. It just explains everything, so you don't have to keep going down these rabbit holes that keep everybody divided and conquered, and just fighting over stupid things that nobody can. Everybody's going to keep finding their proof. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. Well, whatever you look at, whether it be flat Earth, mud flood, Tartaria, or any of the other topics, the only consistent message you're ever going to get back is you've been lied to. You've been lied to. What you've been told is a lie. So it gets to a point. It's like, I think I've got the idea, and I think it's fairly safe to say what the next thing if I start looking external like that, is going to give me that same answer. It's not going to give me a definitive answer. It's just going to give me an answer that you've been lied to. So, like Jason says, flat Earth is a stepping stone. Don't get stuck on it, or any of the other topics.
Right. The false narrative is a stepping stone.
Yeah. The key question is, like, even if I do, and I don't think anybody has ever got to a bottom of any rabbit hole, but how does it actually benefit me to know that I've been lied to? I'm certainly not going to help me find the answers I'm looking for. All it's showing me is it's not what we thought it was. Nothing about this reality is as we thought it was. That's all I find I've ever got out of any of these things. Some of them are more fascinating than the others. If you've got an interest in architecture and things anyway, then obviously Tataria and that is and the old buildings are going to have an added appeal. But inside the essence of us, how is any of that helping? So it's always the last place we look to find, whether it be car keys or whatever. So taking that as, well, I've looked externally, I've looked out into space, I've looked at what's below Earth or whatever. I've never found an answer. But if I now turn those questions inside myself, I'm starting to get answers. It's like, because it says the answers, we've got all the answers inside us. But not, that's, as a concept, it's still meaningless. But when you start to experience that and you do feel these things inside, and you think, now it's starting to all make sense. That's sort of where I've got really.
That's where you get the most clarity, when you get those answers through yourself. It's not like trying to get the answers from out there, because you never get a straight answer,
Yeah. Well, it comes down to, again, in that, I'm going to sound like David Icke, in my book, I actually discuss with any artist the whole thing of idea. When that idea has come to that artist, that's when it gets the ID. But if you take away the ID and now it's just potential, it's EA, and EA is another name for Enki. It's the old name for Earth as well. It's the first two letters.
It also is kind of like ether, AE, yeah. Ether.
Oh yeah, the fused A and E again. There's your conductor. It's the ampersand, the amp. So power is sound, amp is sound, amp is sound, amp is sand. There's also sand is like an hourglass. It's referencing time as well, slipping away. It doesn't have a sound of its own. It's a silent fused A and E and all and everything. So it's the potential. It's the nothing being. It's expressed in words and in symbols, but the same message. That's how I see it anyway. So so if you take away the ID, so it's not that painter John Constable or I mean, mine's gone blank, but I think you get the idea. It's not got an individual identity of a particular artist, but that artist is the medium of the EA. It's working maybe through many, maybe through just a few, but you get synchronistic thoughts. So that's probably EA getting lots of IDs added to it. And what's just come to me, if you have more than one ID, is it not about we learn or we show by our actions rather than by our words and thoughts? So if it's more than one ID, it becomes I did.
Yeah, I just find, I like that.
That's sort of come into the mind. So this is live. This is coming live, as it were, a broadcast from somewhere, and I'm just the frequency modulation and the radio to then communicate it and broadcast it, as it were. Yeah, I find this amazing the way I noticed, like Jason says, I've gone off on a tangent again. Well, not really, because everything's interconnected. So there are no tangents. They're just angles, aren't they? And triangles.
Right. I mean, like you said, it's all related.
Yeah. It's all mind blowing. But
Yeah,
I
it's
think,
so cool and so adventurous and so exciting, and it's so sad to see people just like miserable and not making the most of this. It's like you might as
yeah,
well make the most of this. You're stuck here, so make the most of it, and be a creator being and manifest the reality you really want. You can really do that. And there are naysayers out there, and I just hope they realize if you believe it, then it's true.
yeah. Um, it's just a shame that it's almost a shame that we're not more like um, computers, because you could just take out a particular thing and onto a oh, I can't remember the name, one of those little memory sticks, and you could then just plug it into the next person and say, "Here, this is what I mean." And, but you can't sort of export feeling. That's something that's individual to every one of us, and down to our interpretation of like what is happiness, what is love, what is a good piece of music, or um, you can't. There is no sort of like a cassette. You can then just say, put that one in and play that, and it has to come from within each of us individually. And of course, it's down to being open to receive that sort of being on the right wavelengths, as it were, to almost being like what do they call these great big satellite dishes. They're open to the skies. They're trying to pick up on all these things, and that's basically what we're doing in a way. Again, it's like the material world is giving us big clues if we see what been shown to us, and how we see the things. Are we seeing it as just a physical object and we're going to take it literally? It's just for picking up frequencies from the distant whatever of space. But if you take the analogy, being open to all possibilities, all potentials, and then that's going to come down to every individual's mind as well. I don't think that's possible, so I'm going to put a limit there. I'm setting a boundary because I don't believe, or but that's a terrible thing to hold on to as well. A belief. It's unsubstantiated. It's still at the theoretical level or conceptual level. But if you can sort of leave that aside and then just see what comes, that's probably the closest you're going to get to see real magic. I see gamma state brainwaves probably. There's a whole science with like Dr. Joe Dispenza where they can actually predict when somebody's brain is going to light up and fire on all 100%, because most people, if you're in a very stressful job, I think it's beta 3 state. The beta state is the normal daily life, and then alpha state is the sleeping. But then you can go into, forget which way around it is, you've got gamma, delta, and theta states as well, where the mind is just working a different, entirely different frequency. So we are very much like radios and it's all very much like frequency modulation, but that's provable.
It always
And
comes back to frequency, doesn't it? It's all about that resonating and then your intuition, using your intuition. So many people have to have everything thought, it has to make logical sense to them. And that's just not how it works. Intuition plays a huge part when you're really in tune to things and you're at the right resonance. And if you don't incorporate your intuition, then you're missing so much.
yeah, it's
Are you still there? All
So,
right. You still there?
yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, did it cut out?
yeah. Did you move?
Ah,
Did you move away?
no. It may have been because I mentioned Dr. Joe,
Oh, uh,
because if you look at his channel, there's thousands upon thousands of personal testimonies from people they've not had full mobility, or they may have had a stroke, or they may even be stage 4 cancer and things like that. And the collective energy of the audience has actually empowered them or helped empower them. Obviously, they've got to be open to it. And I know with his seminars, you've got to get to a certain level so you can instantly just go into this meditative state. You've got to meet him halfway. It's not like you can go in knowing nothing. You've got to do these, you've got to go through this process. One of the ones is you imagine water coming up. Now, it's a very funny feeling when it gets to, you're feeling the water getting near your nose, and the body is saying, I'm drowning, I'm drowning, I'm going to choke in a minute. And that's a bit of a thing to try and overcome, although you know you're not in water. But when you're going into that meditative state and you're denying the external reality and you're imprinting and impressing something else onto the body, it's still trying to sort of like, no, I don't want to drown. But so you got to overcome that bit. But I think it's a really good one because people have either had the experience of going in water swimming or in the bath even, and you can still get that same sort of sensation. So it's one that's easily to readily relate to, but then it also, you've got that little bit of fear factor of you having almost like switching to breathing underwater in the mind, as it were. But it's just a little hurdle to overcome. But like everything else, it's practice, practice, practice. Same as learning to walk. Uh, it's definitely something worth doing. I would recommend it.
well, you'd recommend going to Joe Dispenza's?
Well, just listen to the meditation techniques, and then try those. It's an experiment as much as anything else. It's like, well, I'll try it. If I don't feel right to me, or I don't really get something out of that, and I'll try somebody else's technique, the way they show how to do it, and I find what works best for me. Some people it may be, can't think of an example now. It may be just doing the Wim Hof breathing exercise and going into it that way. Or you could do like Jason's done. You could immerse yourself into books and become oblivious to the outside world because you're something you've got an interest in, which I feel is a soul memory from past lives. Because why do we all have different interests in different things? Why does one person have a passion for golf, another person that will leave them cold, another person just wants to go rock climbing all the time? Where does that come from? And I would say that's soul memory left over from previous avatar experience. That also seems to be suggested with organ donation, that the recipient will then get this new interest in, say, fishing that they never had before, but the organ donor had a passion for fishing. And then I also think with this whole mummification process of a pharaoh, those 7 jars with the organs, the brain wasn't important. That's just a central processing unit. But the other organs clearly have parts of the soul in them, the ka part that's united with the ba in the Egyptology. And I think it's that sort of Kabbalah. So you've got your spiritual self and your 7 parts of yourself in the physical realm that are then reunited. So it seems that our organs also have memories, not just in the heart. They're all constituent parts of us, as it were. So that's provable by numerous testimonies of people going through this experience of before and after an operation and having an organ transplant. So the proof is there, for definite.
Yeah, it's totally there, everywhere, and in your own life if you pay attention.
Definitely, it's well, if you want to pick up on a particular radio station, you got to tune to that frequency. So, but because everything's interconnected, you got to open up that tuning to the whole spectrum, I'd say, really. And I'm not saying I've achieved it, but so far so good. And the more open I am to new possibilities, then the more that just seems to come anyway. And it does seem to just land in your lap. If you've got if you're going to have the mindset, right, anything from social media, anything that's coming down the internet is with bad intent, then no, it's not going to work. But my testimony of this is, well, some of these channels I would never have found unless it's following on a hunch, or it could be even be a recommendation from YouTube based on other things you've watched. We recommend this to you, and even that becomes a guide, because I can't remember specifics, but there definitely has been different YouTube channels that I've found in that way. Just like, okay, I'll give that a go. That's something I've got a slight interest in the topic they're talking about. Let's see what they've got to say on it. And then, so that's using feeling to communicate. It's listening to a hunch. It's listening to a feeling inside myself. It's like, I feel I should go with that. I'm curious about that. So I'm going to follow it and see where it takes me. So
Yep, and it's good advice to tell people to meditate and just try to get into some state however you can, where you get away from this, all of this, and go into other places, and then from there you'll learn how to go to even more places if you keep practicing, like you said.
you can also make it easier for yourself. This is where you also become a time lord. Well, because to be able to meditate, you have to create time and space. Again, you're not actually creating physically, but you're moving yourself into a conducive environment, but you are creating the time in your life to do it. It's no good if you happen to be in a civil war zone expecting to meditate. That's not going to work. You're better off going out into the middle of a desert. But even the word meditate, it's like, it seems to be very much, you get this sort of image of you've got to be like a monk, and you've got to be just sitting there cross-legged and for hours and hours. Well, no. If painting is your thing, then immerse yourself in the painting, in something you've already put in feeling and passion into that. And I think it's fair to say most people can experience this if you're an avid reader, and the book has got your attention, and people say, oh, I didn't realize the time. Where did the last 3 hours? Jason said this, a whole night will go by because he's so immersed in that work. So even that is a type of meditation of sorts. To actually then to talk in meditation.
That's advanced meditation.
Yeah, to talk in meditation in this strict sort of set ways of, oh, you've got to do this and it's got to be that. It's got to be that. No. I feel the key part is how you're using the 5 senses in this sense.
Basically, if you can get into the zone, get in that flow state, like musicians always do. Any musician, when they're playing, a lot of times they're meditating, right?
Yeah. I personally well, some of it I like live, but hearing it in a recording, when you get particularly in jazz, where they have like these jamming sessions, and probably if you're a musician, and you have that sort of way that when they do these improvisations and things, and it's like, well, we've lost the melody, you've lost the harmony, and it seems like there's a pointless sort of drum roll here, and now an audience, the audience are clapping, and it's like, what are they clapping at? It's just a drum roll, and it's, they all seem to be doing their own thing, and they're lost in that moment. But then they all come back together and somehow keep it together as well. There's a communication between them, and I think that's beautiful. Even if I don't always appreciate the music, I can appreciate the feeling that comes out of that as much as anything else. And certainly hearing especially a compact disc, a digital, as opposed to an analog vinyl record as a world, it's digital seems to be very clinical, very 0 and 1, very AI. But then when you take it to the other level of keep music live, there's a world of difference there. That feeling at a concert, and what feeling comes from those musicians, and obviously then you're responding to that. The audience is as equally important as the orchestra or the musicians anyway.
It's like that Boston song, More Than a Feeling. You know that song?
Yes, yeah, yeah, certainly. I think it's a very easy one to experience, of live concerts, large numbers of people together, or not necessarily a large number, but say 20 people or so. You've got a gathering of people together. You've got that collective human energy. You've got the interaction with an artist or artists. There's definitely something there that you can't even really put into words, but I think it's something most of us can sort of pick up on quite easily and feel.
Yeah, it's just, again, it goes back to frequency and resonance, and yeah, when you all get in your brain waves all get in the same state, and you just have this connection that's beyond the five senses.
The other part, in a physical sense, with the huge difference between, say, just listening to music on the radio or on a recording, and then you've got to actually, there's more of an action. If you've got to make time to go to a concert, to a venue, and you're taking positive steps, as it were, by doing that. You're participating, you're with other people, you're in close proximity. There's a build up of energy. You get this, people say, oh, it's a beautiful atmosphere at that concert. There, if anything, is proof of something in the unseen, because unless the whole world is lying on everything I've ever seen on even on YouTube or the television, there's no way that's all been edited. And I feel that pretty much everyone, maybe the audience can relate to this, and whether they've been to a music concert, and how that feeling that you can't even put into words.
Right, and then you got events like Burning Man, where those people they're just so immersed with that whole experience that they don't even really talk about it outside, because other people can't even comprehend how magical that experience was.
Yeah. I'm not actually sure what that one is, to be honest. You'll have to enlighten me on that.
Oh, Burning Man, you haven't heard of Burning Man? They have it every year out in the desert. And yeah, it's all artists. It's no vending at all.
Oh, right.
Everybody just goes out there and survives for a week, and they have all kinds of events.
Ah,
I'm not sure that the exact location, but I know it's in the desert.
that sounds like that would be quite an awesome experience. As part of me is thinking, oh, that would be madness. But then another part of me is saying, oh, if it comes up, just go for it. It's stepping into the unknown. Because how would I know unless I try it? So if the opportunity presents itself, it's like, well, I feel like I should do it just for the experience, or at least I'll know then.
Yeah, that's good of you. I'm at the point where I'm like, I've been there, done that. And I've seen so much live music and festivals and things like that. I feel like I've kind of had my quota. And it's
Yeah,
just I don't like being around, well, I don't know how Burning Man is, but I don't like being around a lot of alcohol and people drinking because yeah, I can just really feel all those energies that come in with alcohol and other drugs.
yeah. That's a To me, that's a sort of deal breaker when there's alcohol. I've become actually quite sort of zero tolerant to it, because maybe a couple of drinks with most people it's fine, but then I don't stop there. And then it either gets into slurred speech, repeating what they said 5 minutes earlier, or they get aggressive, or they're then going to be ill, and it just spoils it. And it's like you can't listen to the music, or you can't go through the concert experience without alcohol. Like, really? Can you not just enjoy the moment? And actually, these days, I, I increasingly don't like large crowds of people. There's too many energies. I prefer smaller numbers, maybe no more than about 10, um, or just in short bursts. But then I feel I need to balance it, and I then need to isolate myself again, um, because it can become overwhelming. So, in some ways, to retract what I said about going to concerts, I don't know. I don't know if I could actually. Maybe if everybody's on the similar frequency, that might work. But if they're got this very materialistic energy about them, then probably not now.
Yeah, there's just no common grounds to really discuss things with people like that, and the energies don't vibe, and they pick that up too. And yeah, there's just no point in it, and you end up wasting a lot of time that you could be doing better things with often. But yeah, when alcohol's in the mix, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And there are gatherings where it's not like that, and hopefully there'll be more. And yeah, I think those would be okay. But when can you find one? There's always some alcohol there, right?
Yeah. Well, the energy flow family with Claire and Stephen. Um, we for a short while there, we had, and it probably will happen again. We had conscious clubbing, so there was no alcohol, and it was just music and a get together, and it was a pretty awesome. And we do like a group meditation at the end of it. So I think one of them, there was about 20, 25 turned up. This is just on the sort of outskirts of Glasgow, and no problem with that. And that was a really nice feeling. Um, so, and there was no alcohol involved in that at all, which is, so that sort of was a significant factor into it, definitely.
Yeah, I like that idea. Might have to try that out here.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know how to do it. You just put it out there to the universe and let it send out that energy, and it will come back, definitely.
The universe and the metaverse, aka Facebook.
Yeah. Well, isn't it funny the symbol they use? It's so basically like that figure 8 thing. It's saying sort of like, if you're in the middle of that, the whole point of everything is you. You're in the middle of that cross, right in the middle of the 8. So whatever you send out, it's going to come back. So a positive desire or wish, it will respond for definite. Now I'm also using imagination creates reality here, because I'm already hearing you or reading in a message that you saying to me, it worked.
Awesome. It's already there. Yeah, it does work.
Yeah. Something else that I think it was in a comment to one of the videos the other day, and I thought, yeah, good point. When we do this language lessons of the heart and we go back and we're forgiving ourselves, I'm wondering, and I'm sort of been racking my brains thinking, did I see the version of myself now as a young child, somebody who popped into my life, maybe said something and then went off, never see him again? And I'm wondering, so again, it's sort of like asking the sort of listeners here, if they've got anything that feels that they can recall, or maybe this may even spark and think, yes, that did happen to me. I wonder if we've actually sort of appeared as like a very solid ghost, where we've gone back in time and seen a younger version of ourselves and said, look, you're going to be okay. I'm here for you, or whatever you've said to yourself. Because that would then show that we've got a time loop going on as well. But I've got this feeling that it has happened, but I can't think of anything, or can't recall anything specific at the moment. But I know early years there would have been people, and when you're a young child, there'd be all these sort of, shall we say, uncles and aunts that aren't actual uncles and aunts that come into your life. They may be neighbours, but you're just told to call them Uncle Joe or whatever. And maybe they are something like that as well. Maybe
That's interesting because my parents always owned bars and I had tons of uncles and aunts like that. And I had this memory when I was really young of these people that I hung out with, and they were older, but I
yeah,
hung out with them. And I remember we would have these interesting, we had a conversation about what is consciousness once. And they're like, well, it's what drives everything. I was like, what, it can make you burp? And they're like, yeah. And so I was said, consciousness made me burp. And then I burped and then I laughed. And I remember that story really vivid. And then I was with them and we were at this house on their porch, just this wood frame house. And all of a sudden they said, get down, there's bombs coming. And we all got down. And that's the last thing I ever remember doing anything with these people. So I don't know that they were really people here in the 3D at all.
wow, that's fascinating. How old was that? Would that have been before the age of 7?
Yeah. Yeah. It was probably around 5 or something.
Yeah, because I go with what Rudolf Steiner says. We've got these 7-year markers. So up to the time you get your adult teeth, you've got those like roughly 7 years. Then you've got the 7 years to puberty, and then you got the 7 years, which takes us to 21, which is called the coming of age, and insurance and things all changes on things. But those first 7 years, and it's like that's that critical time where they want to get you into the education system. But up to that, up decreasing as you get nearer 7, but certainly you don't have that conscious awareness. That seems to come later. So you're working more on something intuitive, and conscious memories are, for most people, are very much a blur from those earliest years. So it does beg the question, and I think you've answered it there. And these ghosts, these ghost characters that probably aren't real, maybe they are. Because would you recognize yourself 50, 60 years later as a child? And would you even know it was you?
Right. And it might not even be you. It could just be, other benevolent beings coming to give you advice and guide you or whatever.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, I'm trying to sort of put myself in back as a child, and my natural curiosity, and I think this again, it would be in feeling, oh, I'd feel drawn to that person. Certainly it was put across of that big campaign of say no to strangers, which I thought, well, yeah, I understand that. I didn't know the unpleasant implications of what was being said, but without sort of being lured to see young kittens or puppies or the whole sinister side of it. But I feel there is a sort of a sort of a natural curiosity in a child, and that would imply there's a communication and feeling. It's like, oh, this person's really interesting, and you would sort of listen to them, I feel. But yeah, it may be that we appear to ourselves in a different form when we're going back in memory as well. So I'm not saying it's all our older self
Good
visiting
point.
that
I'd say good point on that. Sorry.
I find this a fascinating topic. It's sort of like, it's something I sort of thought of but hadn't really thought of, and then I get this comment and it's like, oh yeah. It's like,
Well, and lots of kids have their imaginary friends, right? I mean, that's been going on. Hear about that all the time, and then we just tell them that it's not possible. They get told it's not possible, and then after a while, they close up that filter, or they put that filter on, so they no longer see those imaginary because they're not really imaginary.
well, that's the sort of repeat message of it's not possible being sort of hammered into you, as it were. But I feel that the opposite is true. They're not in, well, they may have seem to be imaginary to everybody else that can't see them, but to the child, they're real. They're talking to them. They're seeing them. What, I wouldn't dismiss it now. My whole approach would be different. I'd probably be saying to the child, "Oh, wonderful! You've got brilliant, better eyesight and better sense perception than I have, because you're still young, and don't ever lose that." I'd be saying to them.
Right. Yeah. Just imagine if we like nurtured that whole thing with kids and met their imaginary friends and, embraced them and met other ones. It could be a whole different reality. And I guess that's kind of how these indigenous cultures would do it too. When they still had the shaman and stuff, they would embrace that kind of thing. They wouldn't tell you that it's not possible. Oh, you have imaginary friends. Well, maybe you should be trained to be a shaman.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I sit in town, I'm level with the eye line of young children in buggies and things. Not everyone, but a greater number seem to see me, and they're like transfixed and they're just staring at me. And it's like almost this telepathic communication is going on between us. It's like, don't you? and I'm talking to them in the mind, and they sort of respond. It's incredible. It's fascinating observing the really young children, the way they definitely stare, they definitely look.
Well,
It's like they,
even more with autistic children, and especially the autistic child and the mother, it's all telepathic, and it really is for every mother, with their
yeah,
children, and even when their children are grown, the telepathy, and then you can have telepathy with anyone you're close to, just anyone you know. Like if you really have a deep discussion you need to have with someone, and you don't want to have it in person because of whatever reason, you can totally have it telepathically.
definitely. I was just thinking, this is what we're up to about 2 hours now, aren't we?
Yeah, I have to go pretty quick here. I have some things to do.
Because I was thinking, it's like when we're doing these, the time just flies by because we're sort of immersed in what we're talking about, and we're on the spiritual path. We've got a passion for it. We're sort of feeling it. We're living it. And here's a perfect example of like 2 hours are just gone. So although it's not a meditation, from my perspective, I've immersed myself in this and denied the external. I know there's a police siren, something, or an ambulance siren went by earlier, but it sort of, I didn't give it any attention. I didn't say, oh, there's a siren. I don't think it would have came through, because if that washing machine on spin doesn't come through, that wouldn't come through either. So you're spared the background noises.
Right. But yeah, anytime you're in the flow like that and time just escapes you, it is a meditation, you know?
Yeah. I feel like, well, the word meditation, it's a label and it's been affixed to a specific when it isn't. It's more fluid, same as the way the unseen works. It's very fluid, and air is a form of just water in a different state anyway. So we're sort of swimming, in some ways well, you can be drowning in a sea of lies if you take in the external world presentation. Or you can walk on the water, as it were, when you don't feel the fear from it.
Right. Yeah. No fear, no fear, no fear.
That's it.
Nothing to fear.
Well, it's sort of using that one of Jason's saying, it's sort of or die trying, because my experience so far is, I don't know how long this avatar will last. It could suddenly cease tomorrow, but this is still worth pursuing right up to the last breath, because then I just leave the body behind. I know that it's not the end. So, but it is, spend your time wisely and use that time. It seems clear to me we're here just purely for experience. So I want to create the best experience I possibly can and radiate that experience. It's like, well, this is how I feel. I want you all to feel how I feel. I want you to have that feeling inside you, and recreate almost that concert atmosphere of raising the vibration. So it becomes a concert of life. Well, the world is a stage anyway, so
Right. That's how you have to look at it. It really is. You just have to make the most of it, make the best of it. Now that you know, most of us went our whole lives not knowing that we were really creating this reality. But now that you know, and you can fix your subconscious and your unconscious so it doesn't sabotage you, and then just make it fun, make it interesting, make it whatever you want.
definitely, it is like Jason says, once the mind is stretched, it can't go back. And I definitely can't go back into that material world and chasing those material dreams. There's no way back. The door is definitely closed to that. So I have no choice but to keep going on this route. But with every step, it is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, there's flat moments. I observe things that are not pleasant, but I'm not absorbing that and adding, I'm just observing it. I'm staying neutral to it. And it's like I listened to a phone call down the road the other day, obviously trying to do some deal on heroin. Like, well, up to them. That's their choice. I can't interfere with it because they don't want to give it up anyway. So I'm not going to help them by it's good. They're going to put a barrier up. They want that fix. So I've got to stay neutral to that. So there are some what would perceived down points, highs and lows, but I don't have to feel those. That's the distinct difference. I don't have to absorb it and bring that into me. I can feel sorry for them. I can have empathy for them because they've gone down that escapism trap of addiction. But until they're ready to pull themselves out, I can't help them anyway. And that can be, when I say addiction, that can be a belief system. It doesn't have to be a drug addiction, because it is still an addiction because they're hanging on to it, they're clinging to it, and they won't open up to the possibility that might not be the right belief, which is a shame. But that's the experience they're obviously here to have.
Right. And when they have their life review, they'll see all the lessons they had
Yeah.
and all the
Also,
lessons they missed.
we are, I say we, I'm including myself, you, and pretty much anybody else that are listening to this that's on this sort of spiritual path. You are all playing Jesus. You are all being a fisher of men. You are all looking at the many, many oysters, and you're looking for the pearl. So that allegorical story is 100% true. I'm going out there, I'm looking for other people who've got that little bit of spark, life, that awareness that's on the same frequency. To me, they're the pearls. Or if I can open up that oyster shell, which is like opening up the mind, give them a mind-blowing idea, and then see that radiant smile on their face. It's like something has clicked in them. Now something has made sense to them, and it's like, job done. I've helped somebody. That feeling is priceless. If I could walk about and hold that feeling all the time, wow. I want to live for eternity.
Yeah, that's great. And everybody has that potential to shine.
Yeah, this is the thing where we're sort of tricked into looking for singular specific, when clearly it isn't singular specific. Everything is interconnected. So there is no, the only one is within you. You are your own savior of your own avatar. That's just your vessel to go about in. You can't go around as sort of like lights of serpent-shaped lights. And then we wouldn't be able to communicate into the physical world in the same way either. So these avatars are a big part of this. They are part of this realm, and we need them to operate in this realm. That's the way I see it now. So, and I feel it is something distinct from me, but it is also a part of me as well.
Yeah, a very crucial part while we're here.
Definitely. Yeah, because how many can sort of leave the body but still operate in a way that everybody else can see? I mean, it's said that ghosts are on like a time loop. The feeling is so strong, and in their mind they won't let go of a particular place or particular time. They won't accept that they've moved on, so they just keep going on this time loop. So you see this figure that's sort of 3 foot above the current floor level and seems to walk through a wall because they're in that a reality. They've left like an imprint. And of course, when it becomes in the realms of come and visit this haunted house, you're feeding energy to keep that image going. You're keeping that projection alive, because how many of these, you don't get ghosts from 2000 or 1000 years ago. They all seem a lot more recent, but then they seem to fade out. But there are solid ghosts. I've had people talk to me about this. I remember this guy said to me he watched a Ford Cortina disintegrate in front of him. He was talking to this guy, he was there, and then he wasn't there. And it turned out that he died in this car. But enough of his feeling had been retained in this reality. He'd been saved all right, and was still going through that motion. So it will be, which one is it? Is it Atlas that gets the liver pecked out every day and goes through the agony perpetually? So it's basically, I feel that is what a ghost is. It's a leftover feeling that won't let go and is on a loop. So there's another loop there. And of course, then people, if it takes on a the status of being a haunted house. Well, now you've got crowds of people, and think how much energy they're feeding into it. I think it was Cryon who said the best way to get rid of a ghost is go into the haunted house and make love, because it's the only energy that is stronger that will then help that thing move. And that makes sense to me. So it
Yeah.
also begs the we could help not just souls that are in avatars, but we could also potentially help souls that are having trouble passing as well.
I think that was one of Bob Monroe's objectives, but Tom Campbell's always like, everything's okay everywhere. Don't worry about it. Just become love and be in service of others.
Yeah, I think there's I forget the title of the film, but what's left of this Marine is kept alive, and he can only go back for like 8-minute segments to try and change history. So if you've got that strong attachment to an event and become a ghost, where am I going with this? I've lost my train. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, I know what it was. Wouldn't that be like a kind of hell, because you're going through that same thing day in, day out, and whether the time concept is exactly the same, I don't know. But you're doing that repeat of that last moment and won't let go of it. It's like, I didn't die. I'm not going to die. I refuse to die. But you can't change the outcome, so it just loops back. So to me, that would be what would be a real hell, because you can't move on from that. And then because you have no physical form as such, it's part of eternity. So you could be in almost an eternal loop of that last day, as it were. So that would be awful. So it would be beautiful if we can. That's another part of this. I think we're here to help fellow souls to be able to move on, to be able to transition, to not get stuck. And it can be stuck in the sense of a belief. It can be, well, again, that is a belief. If you refuse to accept that you've lost your avatar, you're now in a loop because you believe it that strongly.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Wow, this has been amazing.
Yeah, these talks are always fun, James. I appreciate you doing them. And I think quite a few people enjoy them out there too. And
I hope so.
yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I think too much more than 2 hours is a little much.
Yeah.
So,
well, like, play a
I
bit.
hope everybody who's listening gets something good out of it. I don't have it up yet, but I'll premiere it later.
Yeah, it's just hopefully give at least one listener a new perspective. Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, and maybe unlock something for them. That's my wish anyway, and desire with all this. Because I mean, we didn't start with any planned topic to discuss. It's just evolved as we've gone on with this. It's great.
Right, and like we said, I just forgot my housemate. Never mind.
Oh, it's like, okay, it's 2 hours long, but maybe play half an hour. Press the pause button. Go away, make a cup of coffee. Sit and have a think about what's been said, and then maybe play it again, or go on the next half hour. And then there's nothing to say you got to listen to the things in one hit, is it?
And right, like I was saying earlier, whoever's meant to hear it will hear it, and if it resonates, they'll listen. Like I said, I've listened to really long videos
Yeah,
before. Charlie Freak for one, and I was talking about Ogtales before. I listened to one like 3 times that was 8 hours. So yeah, a lot of us do have the time. If you don't have the time, then that's okay too. You'll
yeah.
get it where you need it, where you can.
Well, that's going to come down. Some of it is time and space again. It's like, well, if the desire's there to listen to it, or make the time and the space to be able to listen to it, if you feel it's going to benefit you, go with it, because you're not going to know until you do it.
Right. And like these YouTube channels are really good therapy too. I recommend that anybody start a YouTube channel like James and I have. And James was inspiration to me watching him for I don't know how long. I don't even know how long I've subscribed to his channel and how I even found it. But yeah, just to get out there, it's really nice to be able to connect with so many people that are like-minded and like-hearted and have all this feedback and just build these communities. It's so cool that we have the internet to do this and that we can all connect because we would all be miserable and crazy and extremely lonely if we didn't have this outlet.
Again, there's a feedback loop here because I don't remember seeing a comment because you at the time you were Nature's Simplicity Revealed, and it was in that comment you mentioned you got a channel. So it was a hunch, it was a feeling. It's like, okay, I didn't know you got a channel. Why didn't you say before? It's like, okay, I'm curious. I want to look at what you're saying on your channel. So that very first video I watched, that was the missing key because you said the words, "What is coming is beyond human imagination." So it's like, wow, that's the answer. You've just said it in one easy sentence. It's like, of course, it's a limit of our imagination that is stopping. If it's beyond human imagination, then we need to expand our imagination to what is possible. And I thought, thank you so much. See, that was a feedback loop, definitely there.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and then you sent me that link for the biofield tuning and live premiere again. It's a hunch. I'm curious. I'm going to go with this. I don't think I've done a biofield tuning before. Well, no, I hadn't done a biofield tuning before. And wow, and that tone has come through the Wi-Fi signal. It's not like I'm not in the same room as the person that did it, but it still unlocked something. So thank you for that as well. I mean, it's just a series of wows.
Right. And it's just like we talked about earlier, everything comes across your path when you need it. There's always messages and everything and opportunities. And you just have to notice them and seize opportunity when it's right. And, be discerning because it's not all going to be benevolent and for your best interest. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the discernment, but that's going to come with experience by trying out all these different things. Find out what works for you. Find out what feels right. If you get a hunch for something, go with it. Your intuition is communicating a huge message with a hunch because we're not just the mind and the body or even the heart. There's all the other intricate parts. It's expressed as being four bodies as well. So we are we are greater than the sum of our parts, as it were.
And that's a good thing.
Anyway, I've started doing like I do with my own videos. It's like the false sort of the summary and
Well, that's great that you always have more to add. You're a great person to know, and I'm really grateful for your channel and us being able to communicate like this. It's awesome, and I'm sure a lot of people out there appreciate it too.
I hope so. I'm definitely going to put these series of videos, our conversations, to the playlist. So it sort of opens up because it then take them to your channel anyway, and then hopefully lead them on to look at the archaic summaries and get that sort of idea, that concept, and then apply. Think, okay, let's see if this works for my life, and apply the things, the whole thing, put it all together and adopt it as part of you, and it does open up a whole new world. I guarantee if you're open, and I'm addressing this to the listeners, if you're open, then you will, I guarantee you will have a whole new perception and it's a game changer, and I feel we are in a computer game at the end of the day.
And we're in a paradigm shift right now too. So it's all happening right before our eyes.
I'm not waiting for any physical cornerstone. We've got a cornerstone in the five fused vertebrae. It's shown to you in the physical world. If you want to build something, you need a solid foundation on which to build, where your solid foundation is your spine. And that's for the energy to travel up. And then you get the mind-blowing moments, which is like the atomic bomb. It looks like a brain. It's an explosion, but of course it comes back in again. What you see as the explosion is the loss of energy, but it sort of folds back over on itself. And again, you've got a loop being shown. I'm going to end there because I could just keep going forever like this. This is the trouble with being an eternal being and realizing it.
You're your own feedback loop.
Yeah, all of us are. We're taught to look for an external one, but really you're looking for yourself, your true self inside yourself. That's all you're looking for. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's always simple.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you, James, and thank you everybody out there for listening. And always remember to focus on what you want and try to help others if you can. And we'll talk to you next time. Ciao, ciao.